I see AI, and that requires a little bit of a devil in the detail, and that's what we are most excited in ISA, because we are boots on the ground.
What are you expecting? So how much electricity demand are they consuming today? Globally, 1.5%, not very big.
Welcome, Laura. I'm so delighted. Thank you so much for coming. I know there's an IEA event going, so a big, heartfelt gratitude to you to coming. Thank you so much. So, Laura, I was thinking, in the interest of time, hopefully we'll have a time like, let's discuss on three aspects. One is IEA came out with some fascinating report recently on the AI. You know, we have been discussing that a lot with all our member countries. What does it mean for Global South? Because we know what's happening on the AI and the data center world in terms of US and China contributing. And perhaps something that we will discuss is also what does it mean for way utilities are managed? Because when we are on the ground, especially in the developing world, it's a little bit of a different reality. And that's something that I love to chat with you. And finally, we should end a little bit on Africa, or what it means for a continent that seems to be having the problem of being left behind on this. So I think just in the interest of just kicking off, if you can tell us that with your latest report, where we all know what the data centers and the world of AI is having a big impact, how do you see that in terms of energy demand, in terms of role of renewables in managing that demand, and the trend in different parts of the world, if you can begin with that.
So first of all, let me thank you and congratulate you for the appointment. Dr. Birol, unfortunately, is at another event. I think many of you will be at several events happening in Brussels today, from energy efficiency global conference to the high-level dialogue, and he will have the pleasure to meet you in person for the first time, and congratulate you also on behalf of the IEA very soon, this afternoon, in fact. So let me start with the following. This is very rare. We have basically stopped producing books, but let me hand this to you.
Thank you
for all of you, you can go online. And I think there are indeed a few very important findings of this Energy and AI report. If you are working in the energy sector, any energy meeting you were going to last year had become an AI meeting. So we all had to start learning about what was happening on AI to understand what was happening on energy. And indeed, AI has been around and digital has been around for a long time. But generative AI has been around for a couple of years, and this has really created a very big shift. And why is this different from what we were seeing before? So these data centers are indeed a bit of a different beast than other energy demand centers in three ways. First of all, we have mapped the 11,000 data centers that are in the world today. And if you look at where they are located, they are much closer to cities that comparably sized energy demand centers. So you're talking about maybe an aluminium smelter, to give you a sense of size, or maybe a small city of around 200 household demand. The largest data center that is currently being built, which is actually in India, in Gujarat, is the equivalent of 5 million households. So they're becoming very, very big. And the third characteristic that is different from other demand centers is that they like to cluster. So meaning, when you have one data center, you actually like to attract another one, and then another one, and then another one. So they're not only big, they like to call the next one. So this is indeed creating challenges for many grids around the world. I see colleagues from the Netherlands. It's not been very easy in the Netherlands, in Ireland, in some parts of the US. However, it's important to also note that there is a big mismatch, meaning that 85% of data centers in the world are currently located in three places, in certain places in the United States, in the European Union, and in China. And there is really, we can come to that back in a second. What are you expecting? So how much electricity demand are they consuming today? Globally, 1.5%, not very big. In certain places, it's very, very large. We are talking Ireland, around 30 to 40%. In Virginia, similar levels. In the Netherlands, also growing very fast. So depending on where you are, the global number may mean very little. And they are actually becoming one of the fastest growing electricity demand around the world. So from now to 2030, we are expecting data centers to account for the equivalent of adding a new Japan globally in terms of electricity demand. How are we going to supply all this new electricity? It's going to be a combination of sources. Actually, renewables are going to be the first supplier, with solar playing a very strong role. We can come to the quality of the electricity in a second, but they're going to play a large role. By themselves, it's not going to be enough, so we are seeing a lot of other sources playing a role. We are seeing natural gas in the US playing a role, a large number of tech companies entering into agreements for nuclear, existing nuclear, but also SMRs, new technologies like geothermal. So lots of growth, very localized, and a variety of sources that will need to meet this growth.
Great. I think what's fascinating to me, after having spent 25 years almost in trenches in 25 countries, is what can AI do in the way distribution and transmission systems are managed today. And let me share some data that almost 1600 gigawatt of capacity is not happening because of transmission constraints. In country after country, now interestingly, the renewable energy market has too much of supply. There's not enough supply of transmission substations and lines. Second, in the developing world, there is a huge leakage of cash. Almost $100 billion are lost just in Africa and Asia because of inefficiency. Some of the countries have losses that I worked on in excess of 50-60%. I see, and that loss can go up to $1 trillion, unfortunately. I see AI, and that requires a little bit of a devil in the detail, and that's what we are most excited in ISA, because we are boots on the ground. What is it that AI can do in not only reducing those cash flow losses? For some of the people here who have tried to work in Africa, the defining problem is there's not enough cash to pay for private sector. So if digitization can help improve the cash flow coming in the utility by optimally utilizing where should renewable be relocated, because countries are doing solar rooftops, countries are doing decentralized, countries are using utility scale, AI can create great algorithms in locating all of this as well. And something fascinating is happening even on something basic as smart meters. India is now right now doing 200 million smart meters over the next 2 years. The ability to capture that data and create algorithms on now how to manage the distribution system will be completely different. What's your take on this perspective, that how will AI fundamentally change the way grids are managed?
So I think this is, I completely agree on the reading that for us this is the most exciting part of the story. In fact, there is a lot of focus on how much new energy AI will need, and we are just at the beginning of understanding what AI can do for the energy sector. So we have actually a very similar number to the one you mentioned, Mr. Khanna, meaning that there is as much as 3 times the amount of solar that we are connecting to the grids on a yearly basis is actually waiting in queues. It's waiting in queues because there is not enough grid capacity. Now, what can AI do in that case? So we have studied one particular example, which is called dynamic line rating. And basically, dynamic line rating, what does it mean? It means that you're not building a new grid. We know in many, many countries how difficult it actually is building new grids. You need time to have the permit. Transformers now, there are delays of 2 to 4 years to get new transformers. So anything that you can squeeze out of the existing grid as quickly as possible has a huge monetary value. So if you were to apply dynamic line rating today to grids around the world, it will be the equivalent of actually installing the equivalent of what we have been installing on average in terms of new grids for 1 year globally. So we would basically postpone the installation of new grids for 1 year. But there is beyond that, I think the important thing is that AI can really be applied to these places where the congestion is greater, where the losses are greater. So the value in this specific basis is much larger than the overall volume. I want to come to we have done huge surveys to understand what are the difficulties in deploying things like DLR and other digital grid technologies. And one item is coming very consistently, and it's skills. So for grid operators, but in the energy sector in general, the key bottleneck is that there are very few people that are in the energy sector and have at the same time the digital skill. I think in India is one of the places in the world where it's not the case, where you actually can combine the two, but globally there is really a big gap.
So it's interesting you say that, because I don't know if you were there. We understand that as a binding constraint, and that is why we are proposing as part of a strategy a global capability center in India.
Fantastic.
That combines the 16 Star C centers connected on digitization to India.
So that's fantastic.
Because as you were very rightly saying, the skills to combine energy and digital, and also a decision support system. I worked in maybe about 50 utilities where technology can be an enabler. Then you need the right leadership that can use that technology as a part of a decision support system. And that's a big support that all these developing countries
So I wasn't there, and congratulations. Seems like to be a very right way to go.
Thank you so much. Maybe this in the end, Laura, let's talk about Africa.
Yes.
And I think it's wonderful. I was part of Mission 300. I hope I can claim that I was the one who conceptualized. And that's something when countries were talking about how not to replicate. The best part of Mission 300 is to create a single platform where everybody must come, because otherwise there's too much of fragmentation. Fragmentation of guarantees, fragmentation of lending, fragmentation of policies. How do you see we helping Africa on energy access? Because I feel a very interesting part associated with AI is also democratizing AI and having it on an open source basis. That, as a global south focused institution, as we are deepening the work on digitization, that's something which should be a very important policy goal. What would be your view?
So thanks again for this question. I think at the IEA we have been trying to track. What we don't have money. We are a knowledge-based organization. So what we can do is to bring forward data in a timely fashion and support decision making. So we have been seeing progress happening on the ground in Africa, but since COVID, things have stalled. Clearly, Mission 300 is something fabulous that has come on the ground, and well done to you and the World Bank and the entire teams that have worked on it. From our analysis of historically what has worked and what hasn't worked, at the end of the day, what we see is basically two key things. First of all, maybe I do a step back. Today is not a matter of technology. Solar, with the cost of production that we have today in Africa, is not only the cheapest source of electricity generation, we have heard this earlier, but is the cheapest form of electricity generation that we have ever had in human history. So it's really not a matter of technology. There are two issues though. If you look at the weighted average cost of capital that African countries are paying when they are deploying a solar project on the ground, they're paying around 3 times more than most of the countries sitting around this table. This means that the economics of the project is completely changing. So first point is, what do we do collectively? And I think this is a very important point, collectively, in a single shop. What do we do to decrease that cost of capital? The second point is, when you look at the amount of investment flowing, which is clearly linked to the cost of capital, is Africa is home to 20% of the global population. If you look at clean energy investment trends, our latest numbers show that last year they attracted 2% of global clean energy investment. So very much linked to the cost of capital. Now, I think that we need to push a bit the AI sector even more, in the sense that currently, I think many countries sitting here, they have many tech companies that are knocking on their door and asking, can I come? I need energy, I want to produce the data you need, you want the data on your soil, please, I need space. And what they're asking is also, in some cases, negotiating with the countries, with the utilities. If I come, how do we split the bill for the connection to the grid? And I think that there is space in African countries and in the global south. Currently, they are home, emerging economies, to 50% of the global internet traffic and hosting 15% of global data center. This is changing. It will change. So what are the ways of thinking about it? You've been working on this for 25 years. The first thing that project developer, private sector, because this is what we need, is private sector money at the end of the day, you want anchor loads. When you create an anchor loads, you know that you will be solvent. You know that the project more easily becomes bankable. So I think there is an interest in starting negotiating with this AI provider that want to build data centers in Africa too, to understand where is the right location, where there is plenty of energy. In the case of Africa, there are plenty of places where there is plenty of energy, plenty of solar, plenty of wind, plenty of other renewable sources, and starting understanding with the utilities that in many cases are defaulting or having issues, how do you decrease what you mentioned earlier, the losses, sometimes that are physical or not physical, and the fact that you have an AI data center located there can create the anchor load and can help optimize everything. So there is, I think, a space for a new type of partnership with these new actors.
Absolutely. Let me share something very interesting I have observed recently, that in a state of Rajasthan in India, which is the largest solar potential and the largest solar in India, when you do digital twinning of a discom to see, given the disparate solar sources, like in all countries, there's some solar rooftop, there's some distributed renewable energy, there is some grid connected. Are you optimally utilizing them? The answer was, it was off by 20%.
Right.
Can you imagine that even in a country which is reasonably better on digital skills, the system is not optimally able to utilize solar? If you take that to China, where the dispatch of solar is one of the defining problems, because unlike a lot of countries where renewables are must run, that means your renewables are dispatched first and then, I think the question of not how many solar are you putting, are you getting every penny worth of it from that, is actually very central. The other very interesting thing that's happening, which I think we would like to take to the rest of the world, we have launched a new facility which offers technical assistance to all the countries on designing this, is can you, at the retail level, for long I was part of this analytical work, are countries going to go distributed, which means they will be off the grid, or they will continue to be grid? The old school was saying, come on, the grid will always be there. The new people were saying, I think AI may fundamentally change that question completely, because there will be a hybrid that will emerge from use of AI. For example, in India, the solar startups are making apps that will decide that if I'm going on a holiday and I have a battery, can I trade it to my neighbor? Because the neighbor, rather than buying from the energy. Can you imagine the complexity of 1 billion people thinking what I have on solar rooftop, what I have on distributed, all of it is online available and people are trading? Huge efficiency, but look at the complexity of the system. I think it will be great, as my final point, that IEA's overall strategic modeling and ability, with a lot of deep skill building in the countries that we can help, and a lot of these devil in the detail questions on what is the future of AI for this.
We would be completely delighted, and maybe I can invite all of you, and Mr. Khanna, you as well. On Monday, we will actually put online, in the vein of continuing to bring to the world the best possible information. On Monday, we will put an Energy and AI Observatory that tracks all currently existing data centers in the world and the planned ones. So this is the part of energy for AI, but also the other part that we discussed today, AI for energy. So we are collecting cases, real-world cases. Lots of them are on grids, actually, from companies and the proven benefits in terms of monetary value, in terms of energy savings, all for all of you to draw inspiration from. And looking forward to working even more closely.